Hello everyone. Good afternoon. This is Saminathan from the Zoho Books marketing team. It's 3 o'clock, so we can start the session. First and foremost, a brief housekeeping activity. This webinar is hosted in a platform called Zoho Webinar, which is a webinar hosting platform. At the bottom, you could see the chat window through which you can ask your questions. This is going to be a session on how you can migrate your business accounting from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. In case if you have any questions, please drop in your questions in the questions tab so that our team can answer your questions promptly. I have Mr. Vijay and Ms. Chitra who has joined from our team. They'll help you out with all the questions and answers. So I would like to welcome our speaker, Mr. Sanjeev Archak. Mr. Sanjeev is a chartered accountant with a rich experience in accounting, taxation, audit, financial management, risk management, and assurance. He is the founder of Integra Books, an accounting and consulting services firm based out of Bangalore. He is also a valued Zoho partner since 2017. He has helped more than 50 businesses migrate to Zoho Books, and he is also a solution expert in Zoho People, Zoho Payroll, and has helped businesses transition to the new solution. I would like to welcome Mr. Sanjeev to the session. Sanjeev, over to you.
Thank you so much, Vijay, Swaminathan, and everyone at Zoho. It's indeed a real pleasure for us to have all of you here with us today. So we're going to be discussing a very vital topic today, which is how to move from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. As you all know, QuickBooks would be exiting India on the 30th of April. And post the 30th, even the data that you have had accumulated on QuickBooks won't be available to you. So time is of the essence now. And if you've already decided to make the switch to Zoho Books, this seminar would indeed be a very useful session for you. So now to begin with, let's discuss a bit about how this webinar is structured, right? So we'll look at a few important questions as to why you should you switch to Zoho Books, how to get started. Of course, you might have a few general queries regarding migration, which we will address it during the course of this webinar. And of course, I'll take you through my own experience of having done so many migrations. And the Zoho team would actually do a quick demo of the DIY migration tool, which they have come up with. Right, Swaminathan already mentioned my background. Yes, I've been a partner with Zoho for the last 6 years, and I've put more than 50 plus businesses on the Zoho platform, largely in the books and the HR space. Now let's get to the most important question. Why should you get around to using Zoho Books? Now, Zoho Books, as you all know, is a cloud-based accounting software which is GST compliant because Zoho is one of the Suvidha partners of the GST department. It gives you features of automating your receivables, payables. You can track inventory, and it has a host of other features which you would find very useful. Right. One of the key benefits of moving to Zoho Books is, of course, the ease of invoicing. So compared to other accounting packages that I have used in my career, I found this to be the most easy to use tool when it comes to invoicing. Of course, there are a lot of other features within Zoho Books which will allow you to streamline both your receivables and payables. GST compliance using Zoho Books is an absolute breeze. Zoho Books also has integrations with other payment gateways which will help you to get paid faster. And of course, Zoho comes with a wonderful tool called Zoho Inventory, which will allow you to manage your inventory. And there are about 70 odd reports which you can access in the report section, which will give you vital information about your business. And one of the most important features within Zoho Books is the automation of data entry process. Right? So you can use a feature called AutoScan, which will enable you to cut down on the manual work that you have. And another essential feature that Zoho has is the mobile app. The Zoho Books app works on both the Android as well as the iOS platform, and you'll be able to access the app and actually transact on the app, much like you do on the web version. Now, after these key benefits, so we'll now actually begin the most important part of this webinar, which deals with migration. So a lot of our clients actually don't know how to start the migration process, right? So it's very important to have a starting point. So we always tell the clients to have a cutoff date for migration, in which they decide how many years worth data they're going to migrate onto the Zoho platform. So it's very vital that you fix on a cutoff date for migration. So once you have done that, the next logical step would be to actually sign up for Zoho Books. So this is what you will be operating on a day-to-day basis. And once you actually have signed up for Zoho Books, you'll get access to this DIY tool, which works like magic when it comes to importing your data from QuickBooks. Of course, as I mentioned, you'll see a demo of this tool a little later in this webinar. So in the period that we have been doing migrations now, we have come across several queries which we have tabulated, out of which we have picked 5, which we think are the most relevant and which we think are the most often repeated queries that we have, right? So the first thing is, most clients ask, will we able to fetch all their data from QBO into Zoho Books? The answer is a yes. So how much time does it take to finish the migration? Because this is the most important question that people have, considering the fact that QuickBooks won't be accessible post the 30th. So the timelines is unique for each case. The larger the data that you have, more time it will take, and of course it's dependent on a lot of other factors too. And what will happen to the supporting documents that they've already stored in QuickBooks attached to those entries that they have passed over the years? The migration tool that Zoho has built now will enable you to even migrate the supporting documents, right? So is my data safe, right? So of course, us being partners and being in this industry for a while, we value data privacy as much as the client does. We do insist that a non-disclosure agreement be signed and is adhered to all the time. Another question that we routinely get is, do you have experience of migration, right? So as a partner, we of course give them a few customer referrals. We have a few case studies built which will calm their nerves with regards to migration as well. So now the most important assignment that we thought which would be an ideal case study is of a unicorn that recently reached out to us, asking us to migrate their entire group of companies onto the Zoho Books platform from QuickBooks. And what we did in this case is a template that we have formulated based on our previous experience. So as a starting point, we did a quick review of the data they already had within QuickBooks. So this enabled us to put a number to the transactions. We were able to figure out what are the number of JVs that they passed, a number of invoices they had, both sales and purchases. So we were able to put a number as to the number of transactions that we had to migrate. So this also enabled us to give them our timeline within which we would finish the migration. Now, even before we started the migration, we started off with user training for them. So of course, they had a big team who had to use various modules of Zoho Books. So this training actually enabled them to understand the features of Zoho Books and how it differed from QuickBooks. And it also served another purpose, wherein we could actually make them understand the errors that might come up during the migration. Right? And of course, they had to learn how to use Zoho Books because they had to do it on a everyday basis. Now, this entire set of companies that we had to migrate had varying transaction numbers. Some had a very high volume, some had a low volume of transactions. For companies with a lower transaction threshold, we opted to use the DIY tool, which is inbuilt within Zoho Books. Right. So now this DIY tool does something something magical. It will actually list out, once it starts pulling in data, it'll actually list out all the errors that we get section wise. So this actually makes our life very, very easy, right? So we can actually take out these errors, have a quick call with the client, brief them about the errors, and tell them how to fix those errors also. So once the customer was in the loop and they understood what we were doing, they were very comfortable with the timelines that we are proposing, the tool that we were using, and thanks to their support as well as Zoho support, we were able to actually complete the migration fairly ahead of time. Right now, since we are actually migrating data for a many number of years, right? So we had to devise a manner in which we could easily handle the upload also. So it takes a bit of time to upload details onto Zoho Books as well, and we had actually sensitized the client also about the expected errors that might come up during the migration. And of course, we had built this. We used our previous experience of having done migrations for the last 6 months or so to get a sense of what errors might come up too. So this allowed us to be on the same page with the client as well. So now, what did we do with all the data that we had? We actually split the data into smaller chunks, right? So these chunks, we actually broke up all the data into, let's say, blocks of a quarter or 6 months or a year, and we started uploading them, and we were able to actually get a smaller error list also. And this was a little easier on the client because he didn't have to break his head over trying to solve errors which would run into hundreds of line items in an Excel sheet. Now, of course, we were able to actually now take the client through the entire errors that had occurred that we actually got, and we helped them take corrective actions also. Please note that the all error corrections that we made didn't alter the data in a migration process. You are only transferring the data from an existing system into a new one. So migration is not a process of altering the data or even doing an audit of the data. So we were not being critical of the client or his accounting practices. We were merely suggesting a few tweaks which would allow us to actually import the transaction onto Zoho Books. So now, once those errors were solved, we had to re-upload those files and ensure that there were no errors post the corrections that the client made. This was vital for us to finish the migration. Now, when we say finishing the migration, what does it mean, right? So a process of finishing the migration would actually include basically 3 thumb rules, right? So what are we looking at? We're actually finally looking at matching the trial balances for every year that we have migrated. Now, this also we were able to break it down into 3 different chunks, right? So we had to match all the revenues that were in QuickBooks with Zoho Books. Right? So we did it account wise. So this the best way to do things also, and matching of expenses with QuickBooks and Zoho Books. So this took care of my entire P&L side of the financial statements, and we were left with matching of all the balance sheet items. So once these were tied up, we called it a successful migration. So right now, the most important thing to understand when you are migrating as a professional is what are the sort of errors that we would be getting during the process of migration. So now the common error types can be grouped into 2 different buckets. Now, what are these 2 different buckets? One set would be the errors that arise out of the feature differences between QuickBooks and Zoho Books. Now, these are challenges which are unique in nature. And the second error would be rather I would still say it an error, would be the accounting practices that the client has historically followed. Right? So now, what were the feature differences? Right? Now, let's look at some of the feature differences between QuickBooks and Zoho Books. Right? So now, QuickBooks allows passing of entries via the journal mode for accounts having accounts AR or AP, neither debit and credit. Now you can use JVs for sales, purchases, customer receipts, vendor payments, and even adjusting forex differences. So now QuickBooks also allows taking GST input credits from vendors whose GST numbers are not mentioned in the vendor master. This is again a unique error that we faced because we don't come across situations like this within Zoho Books. Now, QuickBooks also allows bills to be passed without bill numbers. I mean, this is hard to believe, but we did come across cases where there were no bill numbers, but the client was able to account them within Zoho Books. And we also found a unique case where same bill number was mentioned for the same client in different dates, for the same vendor rather, in different dates. And QuickBooks also allows invoicing customers who are not B2C customers and who are outside the state of the place of supply without entering GST numbers. This is a strict no-no within Zoho Books because Zoho will automatically consider these to be intrastate transactions rather than interstate transactions. So you'll always have a mismatch between the GST tax types. QuickBooks also allows multiple entries in multiple currencies for a single customer. So you might have a customer based in Singapore with whom you are transacting in, let's say, Singapore dollar. So you will actually pass an invoice using the Singapore dollar, but you'll still be able to account for the exchange gain or loss in INR. So these are all the cases that which we found were the most common because of the feature differences between Zoho Books and QuickBooks. Again, the cases that we have listed out here, these 5 or 6 cases that have been listed out here, these entries were not permitted within Zoho Books. Of course, we had to actually take the client through the list of common errors much before we started the migration, so that they're also in tune and know what to expect during the migration process. And then of course, there are always accounting practices which differ from business to business, right? So everybody follows a practice which they think is relevant to their style of business and the data type that they have. So now, what are the accounting practices which we felt could have were creating problems during the migration? The first thing was usage of journal JVs for passing entries in multiple modules. So a lot of the clients that we migrated onto the Zoho Books platform are use the JVs module for sales, purchases, receipts, payments, exchange differences, just about everything. I mean, Zoho Books now weren't in a position to allow those entries because it's a feature restriction within Zoho Books, right? So you still have to use a sales entry type for raising an invoice, an expense entry type for accounting an expense, a bill for accounting, a vendor invoice, then exchange differences automatically get computed. You have different modules for entering both the customer receipts and vendor payments within Zoho Books. So now this was a challenge that we had to get over. Of course, Zoho's support team and the partner relations team were of tremendous assistance during this process. So we had to work with both the client as well as Zoho's team to get over this. And then what we genuinely feel is that using a cloud-based software, you can avoid using JVs for across modules. There are other easier methods of entry which are available to you, and a lot of these errors that we encountered when we moved the vendor and customer masters were relating to something as basic as missing GST numbers, missing PAN numbers. These were a real hindrance when we got around to migrating the actual transactions. Now, one of the examples of those errors was selecting TDS sections but not mentioning the actual TDS deduction, right? So we had a case where you had selected, so let's say 194J, instead of mentioning the TDS amount, the amount was mentioned as 0. Now Zoho Books also had trouble reading this data, right? So it threw out an error saying that we can't account this TDS because you've selected the section, there is no amount. So one more unique feature that we saw in a larger case of migration that we handled was there were a lot of entries where the debit and credit amounts was zero. Now, as to how this happened in QuickBooks is anybody's guess, but definitely we didn't understand the logic of actually passing zero value entry. Another important feature which led to a lot of errors for us when we are migrating was that debits and credits were not matching. The differences were very minute, right? It could be in decimals of 0.001, but due to these decimal differences, we weren't able to migrate everything as we wanted. So these were all the list of common errors that we saw, both in terms of features as well as the accounting practices. Now, when we were faced with errors which were running into hundreds of line items, what did we do? We simply picked up the phone and spoke to Zoho. Right? Now, Zoho were actually gracious enough to allow the usage of JVs in entries where both accounts receivables and payables were involved. So this was an actual game changer, right? So not just that, they went a step ahead and actually allowed us to import both customer receipts, vendor payments, which were passed via JVs within QuickBooks. Right? So they came up with an intermediate account called the bank intermediate, from which all these entries were routed. Now, this feature enabled us to migrate thousands of entries. Right? So we had a case where we had to migrate about 40,000 entries. Right? All customer invoices passed via JVs. Imagine 40,000 entries, which we were able to onboard onto Zoho Books. We would never have been able to do that had this feature not been enabled. So they were of tremendous assistance, and this unlocking this feature actually enabled us to move forward with the migration and finish them within the agreed timelines. So now, as you all know, this migration process started late last year or mid last year, and Zoho also continuously improved the quality of the import tool that they had. Right? So we had a Python-based tool, with, of course, a few feature restrictions. Now they've come up with a wonderful tool which works within Zoho Books. So it has been a gradual, continuous improvement.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Saminathan. I'll take over the session and I'll give you a walkthrough of how the Cubio tool will help you in migrating your data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. Let me just quickly share my screen. Yeah, so as you see here, this is the Zoho Books page where once you log in, you'll be having an option called as Cubio migration. So if in case you've signed up for Zoho Books at books.zoho.in, you'll be having an option where you can enable that you are migrating from QuickBooks. So once you enable that option and you sign in for Zoho Books, you'll be automatically, like this migration tool will be automatically enabled for your organization. In case you signed up through books.zoho.in, but still this migration tool is not visible to you, you can drop us an email and we will get the tool enabled for you. So moving forward to see how the tool works. So we can complete the migration in 6 simple steps. The first step to start the migration is to connect your Zoho Books organization to your QuickBooks account. So as you see here, there is a button called as Connect to QuickBooks. You can click on this, and as a next step, you'll be redirected to a page where you can enter your QuickBooks login credentials. So one thing you have to ensure here is just ensure that the email ID that you mentioned here has admin access in your QuickBooks organization. So this is the first step. So once you enter your login credentials, you'll be connected to QuickBooks. So the option will turn as connected. The next step is basic configurations. You just have to mention your GSTI details and you can click on save. So this is the only basic settings that you have to do once the connection is established. So once this is done, like once the connection is established and the basic GST details have been saved, you can proceed with fetching the details. So fetching can be done in 3 steps. The first step is to fetch your masters, which includes your items, customers, vendors, and the chart of accounts. Next is to fetch the transactions, which include the purchase transactions, the sales transactions, and other transactions like your journals, the credits, the trial balances. And next fetching will be your attachments. So in case you have attachments which are associated to your transaction in QuickBooks, you can even attach, like fetch those attachments, and these will be associated to your transactions. So you can initially start with fetch masters. So once you click on this fetch masters button, the masters will get started to fetch. And if in case all the details have been successfully fetched, you'll be able to see an option called as success next to your master section. But just in case there are certain failed records. So if there are differences in what the data you have entered in QuickBooks and the data that is fetched to Zoho Books, you'll be able to see a failed message here. And it will also show you the number of records that have been failed. So corresponding to each and every section, it will show the respective failed records. So all you have to do is you can click on this download failed records option that is available here. So this will download a zip file which will contain the errors under each and every section. So you'll be having a CSV file that contains the errors in the item section, a CSV file for each and every individual section. So you can open that error file, make the respective corrections, and you can re-import that file using this upload files option. So you can click on this upload files. So you'll be having sections here like to import your chart of accounts, the products and services, customers, vendors, projects. So you just have to re-import the file, like the transactions which contains only the errors, and you can click on complete upload. So likewise, you can do this for every section. So you can fetch masters. So once the masters is completed successfully, including uploading your error files, you can then proceed to fetch your transactions. Once again, if everything is fetched successfully, you'll be having a success message. Else, you can once again download the failed transactions, make the necessary corrections in the error file that has been downloaded. And once the corrections have been made in that CSV file, you can use this upload file option and you can upload the files under purchases, sales, and others. So this is the basic process you need to follow to fetch the transactions. If everything is successfully fetched, it is perfect. If not, just make the corrections only in the error files and re-import the files again. And next is to fetch your attachments. So as I mentioned previously, you'll also be able to fetch your attachments, and these attachments will be automatically associated to the respective transactions. In case if any attachment has been failed, so those attachments will be available for you under the document section in Zoho Books. So for these attachments alone, we need to go there and we need to select to which transaction this attachment has to be associated. So this is how you can, fetch your masters, fetch your transactions, and fetch your attachments using this do-it-yourself tool. So once all this process, including the masters and transactions, have been successfully fetched, the two final steps are to verify your balances. So first, you can verify your opening balance. So let us say you're fetching your transactions. Like when you fetch your transactions, you can enter the date from which you'll be fetching it. So let us say you're going to fetch your transactions from 1st of April 2022. When you fetch the opening balances, you need to mention the date prior to your fetch transaction date. So as I said, if fetch transaction date is mentioned as 1/4/2022, you can enter the opening balances date here as 31/3/2022. And based on the rate you mentioned, Zoho Books will automatically pull in the balances from your QuickBooks account. Like it will generate the trial balance, and from the trial balance details which are available in your QuickBooks account, all the opening balances will be pulled in here and it will be populated against the respective accounts which are present. So you can just verify the balances which have been pulled against each and every account present, and you can click on continue button. So this is how you can verify the opening balances which have been fetched to Zoho Books. And the final step is to complete your migration is to verify the closing balances. So once you click on verify closing balances, you'll be able to see these three columns. The first column which shows closing balance in Zoho Books, second column is closing balance in QuickBooks, and the third column is the difference column. So you'll be able to compare against each and every account, like what is a closing balance in Zoho Books, what is a closing balance for this particular ledger in QuickBooks, and if there is a difference in amount between Zoho Books and QuickBooks, you'll be able to see that in the difference field here. So you can click on that and you can choose to update this difference by either you can post it as a journal entry, or you can create a transaction to adjust that difference, or you can adjust the opening balance directly. So by performing this action, you can even adjust, like you can ensure that there are no differences in the closing balance of Zoho Books and QuickBooks, and you can click on this button complete migration, and this will complete your total migration process. So to just give a recap of all the steps, you can complete your total migration in 6 simple steps. The first step is where you'll be connecting your QuickBooks to Zoho Books by using the connect option. Next step, to enter your basic organization detail, which is nothing but your GST number. Next is fetching the transactions. So starting from the masters, next you can fetch the transactions, and finally you can fetch the attachments. And the last two steps are to verify your balances. You can verify your opening balance and you can verify the closing balance. And to add on about like few details about this migration tool. So this migration tool will be able to fetch up to 50,000 transactions, like module wise. For invoices, you'll be able to pull in 50,000 transactions. Bills, you can pull in 50,000, and module wise, it supports up to 50,000. In case if you have more than 50K transactions for each module in your account, we have given an option here where you can download your QBO data. So you can click on this download QBO data option, and you'll be having an option here for each and every section, like for masters, for sales, for purchases, and for the other section. You can download every transaction from your QuickBooks account, and the additional, like more than 50,000, whatever additional volume of transactions you have, you can import that manually into your Zoho Books account. So up to 50K, you can fetch it directly using this tool. If it goes above 50K, you can download your QBO data using this direct download option. You can so once it gets downloaded in your system, you can import the same file into Zoho Books and you can complete your migration. And also regarding the data center. So as I was saying during the start of this presentation, so when you log into books.zoho.in, this migration tool will be available. So in case you are in the Indian region, but you have signed up your Zoho account at books.zoho.com, then we have an alternate option for that. So we do have an export tool. So using that export tool, we can help in exporting your complete data from your QuickBooks account. So irrespective of the volume, so be it 50,000 or up to 1 lakh, we can help in exporting your entire data from your QuickBooks account, and we will provide this export file to you. If you are in books.zoho.com, we can help in exporting the data for you, and we can help in even enabling a wizard. Using that wizard, you can import those files and you can once again complete your migration. So this is to give you a quick brief on how this DIY tool works, and also if you're in books.zoho.com, how you can move forward with your migration process. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Chitra, for this detailed explanation on how users can migrate their data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books using the DIY tool. And now we can open up the session for Q&A. We can take new questions. In the meantime, we'll answer the existing questions. We can answer the existing questions that we already have. So sorry for that. I will answer the existing questions now. Okay, the first question is, can we migrate the bank transactions? It's the first question. All the bank entries in QuickBooks, can this be migrated to Zoho as well?
Swaminathan, would you like me to answer that, or would you be taking that one?
I mean, please feel free to, sir. If you want, you can answer it, sir. No problem, sir.
Please go ahead. No problem. You take this one.
Yeah. So regarding the migration of bank transactions from QuickBooks, so your deposits or your withdrawal entries which you have in QuickBooks, we will be bringing them as journal entries in Zoho Books. But the reconciliation and the categorization of transactions alone has to be done manually here. But regarding migrating, yes, we do support in migrating the bank transactions too, and they will be reflected as journals in Zoho Books here.
I guess that's the same question from Asha Mohan as well. So I guess Chitra has already answered to that. There's this question explain this unlocking JVs in some detail. Mr. Sanjeev, can you take this up? Because you were explaining about unlocking the journal entries during your presentation.
Yes, sure. See, the feature restriction in Zoho Books was that it would not allow any journal entry which contained accounts receivable or accounts payable in either debit or credit. So a simple example would be that you wouldn't be able to pass accounts receivable debit and sales credit. That this entry would be passed only if you use the invoice feature instead of the JV feature, right? Now, a lot of our clients had used the JV feature within QuickBooks to record their revenue entries. Now Zoho wouldn't allow such entries to be passed. So now what Zoho did was that they unlocked this feature within Zoho Books, which allowed accounts receivable to be debited and sales to be credited via journals, right? So this meant that both QuickBooks and Zoho Books were on par with each other, and we could actually migrate all the JVs, revenue recognition JVs, and payable JVs into Zoho Books. And I hope that I answered that well, Swaminathan. If additional clarifications are required, just please let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I guess if we get any questions related to that, we'll again open up the chat here, sir. And
So we have one more query here from Mr. Satyam. Whether any facilities is available to verify balances of ledgers class-wise defined in QBO. So the classes which you have defined in QuickBooks are brought in as reporting tags in Zoho Books. So in case if you want to verify any report based on these tags, like the classes which we bring in as tags to Zoho Books, you can go to a particular report. You can filter out the report based on a tag. So there'll be an advanced filter option available in the reports. You can filter the option and select for whichever class or the tag which you want to view the report, and you can check out the report for the same. So classes in QuickBooks are being brought in as reporting tags in Zoho Books. And yes, you'll be able to filter out the reports based on that.
Yeah, one important question one Mr. Dhruv Vora asked is this about the date errors, Chitra. This is a very valid question. I think it would be beneficial if you could actually answer this.
Yeah, sir, we will check on it.
Dhruv Vora, he says, despite the date format corrected in Excel and also configured in ZB org profile to DDMMYY, it throws the date format selected does not match with the date format in the file.
So regarding this date format error, so we have set up a default date format at the backend. So whatever transactions you are actually importing into Zoho Books, please have it in the format YYYY hyphen MM hyphen DD. I'll just repeat it again. It is 4 Ys, which is the year. For example, 2023 hyphen MM, which will be 04 hyphen DD. Let us say today's date will be 12. So please have all your dates in this format and import the file. It will definitely work. So the one more question we have here is, can I migrate data for the last 10 years from QuickBooks using the DIY tool? So one thing regarding the DIY tool that we would like to clarify is it currently supports only post GST transactions. So any transactions you have after 1st of July 2017, only these transactions you'll be able to fetch using this DIY tool, and any transactions prior to that you'll not be able to fetch using this tool. So
Ms. Leelavati, to answer your question, is there any specific team as such? See, we have an internal team, and also we have our valued partners like Sanjeev and others who can help you out with migrating all the data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books. For any particular requirement from your end, please do drop us an email and we can assist your requirement accordingly. Because there is no definite answer to this as such, because it all depends upon the clients, the number of transactions and the data volume as such. But we can help you with whatever your query is. Please do drop us an email and we'll help you out accordingly.
And we have one more question, like, will tool be used for migrating data more than 50K? So as I mentioned, the limit set for this DIY tool is 50,000. So you'll not be able to fetch transactions once the limit exceeds 50K. It will definitely throw you an error. So that is why we have brought an option where you can download your QB data. So if you have more than 50K transactions, you can use the download option, and that file will once again be downloaded in a format which is supported in Zoho Books. So formatting change, all those kind of formatting is not required. You can download your data and use the same file and import it if the transaction limit crosses 50K. How to migrate attachments that are already in QuickBooks to Zoho. We are not maintaining any physical documents. So as mentioned during the demo that we showed, this DIY tool supports in fetching your attachments too. So once you fetch your masters and transactions, so first ensure that the transactions have been successfully imported, because attachments will be associated to the transactions. If the transaction itself throws an error, the respective attachment cannot be associated to the transactions. So please check that the transactions have been successfully imported. Either you correct the error files, or by default it has been successfully fetched using the tool. Ensure the transaction fetch is successful. Once that is done, you can proceed and fetch your attachments. Also, the sales transaction has been in progress for more about 48 hours and not completing. So we will check on this issue. I think our team had responded to you regarding this 48 hours and it is yet in process. So we will definitely check this on priority and we will get back to you separately, sir.
One question from Isha Krishna is, what if the company does not have a GSTN? Mr. Sanjeev, you would like to answer this?
Yeah, I think if I would require a little more specific information. Does not have a GSTN means what? The company is not registered.
Looks like it, sir.
GST.
I guess they would have not registered to. They don't have a GST number, is what we feel. Mr. Risha, can you just give more details about your question so that we can accordingly provide a relevant answer to it?
Thank you.
Yeah. And is it possible to use DIY for migrating data from two different QB subscription to one single Zoho Books?
So this is currently not possible, because when you click on connect to QuickBooks, you'll be having an option to select only one particular QuickBooks account. So one Zoho Books account can only be associated to one QuickBooks account, and data fetches like one-to-one. You cannot connect one to many accounts from here. So how to migrate one company which has two different GSTNs? In QB, there are two separate books. So once again, since in QuickBooks you have maintained it as two separate organizations, as I said in my previous question, you can only connect one Zoho Books account to one QuickBooks account. So it will pull data for one GSTN. What you can do is you can create another Zoho Books organization, pull the data for the second organization in that. Once that is done, you can export the data from the second Zoho Books account and import it into the first Zoho Books account. So since they are going to be between Zoho Books account, like the compatibility issues will not be there. Just export the data from the second org and import the same into your first Zoho Books. In that way, you can maintain both your GSTINs in a single organization in Zoho Books. So this is what we do suggest for this.
Yeah, you can choose the corresponding plan where with one plan you get multiple GSTNs. And like Chitra mentioned, you can migrate the data within the Zoho Books organizations, and you can just pay for that one organization and take it forward.
If migration data is for 2 years, how can we have control over year-end numbers for 2 years separately? So, for example, let us say today you're fetching the transactions. So you'll be mentioning from which date you want to fetch. So if you mention it as from 1/4/2021, from 2021 till date, all your transactions will be fetched. If you want to check over like control over year-end numbers, so in that case, you can run the relevant reports. Let us say you can generate the trial balance report as on a particular date, and you can check what are the balances available against each and every ledger as on, let us say, 1/4/2022. Similarly, you can generate the report for 1/4/2023, and you can verify whether the balances are matching with what is available in QuickBooks for you. Yeah, so it's term client in QB as same as contact in Zoho. So we have the term called as customers in Zoho. So you'll be having two things. One is customers and contact persons. So your clients in QB, you'll be bringing them as customers in Zoho Books. And for the client, if you have sub-clients or associated sub-contacts to a client, those associated contacts, you need to bring in as contact persons in Zoho Books. So in Zoho Books, the terms used will be customers and contact persons.
Okay, Dhruv has asked for the format again. So it is YYYY-MM-DD. So it will be the full year followed by the month followed by the date. So if you consider today's date as example, it will be 2023-04-12. That is going to be the format here, Dhruv. Leelavati is asking, please share the contact for your partners who can help in migrating since we are getting errors and not sure how to address. We'll drop you an email, Leelavati. We can help you with sharing the partner details, and you can contact the respective partner and you can take it forward. That shouldn't be a problem.
So because of that, certain journals might be brought in as bills here. Certain expenses in your QuickBooks might be brought in as journals in Zoho Books. So based on the format which we support, like the type we support, we bring in the respective transactions. That might be the only reason why the count, there might be a discrepancy in the count. But at the end, when you check the balances against your accounts, everything will match. You do not have to worry about the counts which are displayed, between Zoho Books and QuickBooks here. So if the failed transactions aren't important to me, can I proceed with completing the migration without correcting them? So it is actually up to your decision. But what we suggest from our end is you can correct the like whatever error records you have got, you can correct them, upload it, because the main thing in migration is you have to migrate all your data and verify that your balance are right. If you miss out this part of leaving the failed transactions as such, the balances might not be matching for you, and during the year-end accounting you might be having issues at that time. So we suggest you to correct the failed records, verify that your balances are perfectly matching, and you can proceed with the other process.
There's a question from Asha. How can we migrate only bank transactions? Where do we get the option? So in this case, this DIY tool is used to import all your data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books, right from your master data to transactions to attachment to whatnot. But if you're only looking to have bank transactions, then you can import your you can export the bank transactions only from QuickBooks and then import that to Zoho Books. That is the only option, but you have to do it manually. You don't have a specific tool only to import bank transactions as such. Ashik, your question is, will we bill our clients in INR and USD as well? Will be a problem by migrating data? That shouldn't be a problem, but Zoho Books offers multi-currency handling from our premium plan. So if you can choose our premium plan, then you'll be able to handle this multi-currency where you have to handle clients in INR and USD. So that shouldn't be a problem. Abhilash has a question. Can we have a demo on correcting common error files? We have a recorded video of the common errors that customers face and how they can correct them. We can share the recording with you, Abhilash.
So regarding the question, what if the error file is empty? So if the file is empty, it represents that there are no errors in the specific module. You can just skip that file and proceed to the next section. So my company's turnover is below 20 lakhs and we don't have a GSTI. Is it possible for me to migrate data from? Yes, it is possible. So even if you do not have a GSTI, yes, you can migrate your data from QuickBooks to Zoho Books.
Mr. Ronak is asking share partner details. Yeah, we can share you the partner details over email. Mrs. Sanjeev, would you like to share your details as well so that we can connect with Mr. Ronak?
Yeah, shall I just type out my email ID here in the chat section? Be okay?
I'm not able to.
Should I just mention my email ID here in the chat section?
Yes, sir. Yes, just drop in your message so that people can reach out to you if they have any questions as such regarding migrations.
All right, I have mentioned my email ID.
Ashik, your question on if we have imported the bank transactions, will the receipts amount automatically against the invoices as it was in QB? Unfortunately, that is not possible as of now in this migration, but maybe we can check with the team and see if there is a workaround for it. Shashank, we want to migrate the data from QB to Zoho Books and we need Zoho's partner service. Hi, Shashank, we'll drop the list of partner details to you over email in another 3 to 5 business days, along with the recording and the deck. In case if you want to reach out to Mr. Sanjeev, who's here in the call, you can drop him an email and he can help you out with the migration. He has shared his email ID in the chat. You can either drop him a message. Hi, Ketan. Ketan, we have a dedicated support portal called migrations@zohobooks.com. In case if you get any errors or doubts, you can drop in your queries there and our team will help you out with the recording. Or if you are getting assistance from any of our partners, you can reach out to them and they can help you out with any of your queries. That shouldn't be a problem. I guess we have almost covered all the questions. To all the attendees, this session is recorded. You will be receiving an email with the recording in 3 to 5 business days. Within 3 to 5 business days, I'm sorry. And also, I'll also share the deck along with the partner details so that in case if you have any request regarding or assistance regarding migrating your data from QB to Zoho Books, you can reach out to those partners or you can reach out to us and we can help you accordingly. Yes, Ram Prakash, we'll be sharing the recording. I guess you will receive the recording in another 2 hours, but please wait for 3 to 5 business days so that you can get all the materials in correspondence with the session. We have another 5 more minutes and then we can end the session. I'm dropping in the support email ID through which you can drop in any request regarding migrations and our team will help you out accordingly.
So regarding the error, you can add items which have only sales information. You cannot add items which have only sales information in a purchase order. So this error will usually occur. For example, for an item A, you have mentioned only the sales information and the purchase information is not mentioned. What is the purchase date and what is the purchase account associated? So if in case you have not added the purchase information for the item, you can go to the items module in Zoho Books, click on that particular item, like edit the item, update the purchase information for it and save the item. So once you do that, you can try importing this purchase order file again and it will work. So please update the purchase information for the particular item and then proceed to import the purchase order file. So this is PO, which is a purchase order, right? So the item mentioned in the purchase order must have the relevant purchase information. So you need to go and check this in the items module and not in the purchase order module. Go to the items module, click on that particular item name and check whether the purchase information for that item is mentioned. Like what is the account which you're going to associate to that particular item? What is the rate, the purchase rate for that particular item? Check this in the items module, make the necessary corrections there and save the item. and then come to this purchase order file and import it. So error is with regards to the item actually and not in the purchase order file. Once you update the item details, this purchase order will work.
It's almost time. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjeev, for being a gracious host and briefing the audience on your experience in migrating businesses from QB to Zoho Books and answering the relevant questions. I hope this session was useful for everyone. Any parting words, sir?
Thank you so much to the entire Zoho team for granting me this opportunity to be a part of this webinar, and I'd like to thank the audience who turned up in such large numbers on a weekday and asked some great questions. It was a lovely session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjeev. Like I mentioned, you'll get the recording, and I'll also drop an email with the presentation and relevant details. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a gracious audience. Take care and stay safe.